Hi, it's Moni, and welcome to Mind and Your Business. Hey guys, welcome to Mind and Your Business with Moni. I am so excited to be here with you today because I'm going to do something a little bit different. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but I have a coaching company for real estate agents called Coaching for Closers. And I guess it's not even just for real estate agents, but that's kind of my realm. So that's where I'm focusing. So Coaching for Closers is something I've developed to, I feel like, fill a special need in the real estate coaching space, which is not so much like, here's how to generate more leads, but here's how to actually close your deals. Here's how to actually overcome challenging aspects of real estate transactions that cause an average agent or even a good agent to have their deal fall through. And the things that I've learned over selling probably close to 1,000 homes, just the little tips and tricks and things that I've learned that I've now been coaching to my agents and my local team, but also hundreds of agents across the country. So that's what Coaching for Closers is. So I thought it would be helpful to have some coaching here on this call today, because I feel like when it comes to mindset and, wanting to do more transactions or wanting to be more successful as an agent and a better negotiator, these two things go hand in hand. So I feel like it really works well for the podcast and what this is about. So if you like this type of content, let me know, because I plan to do this once a month or maybe once every couple months, just do a just me and you podcast where I talk about just a few things that I've picked up on, that I've coached on recently with my agents, so that you have them. And maybe these can be tools in your little toolbox that you can remember and pull out when you encounter an issue. So today I want to talk about three really cool, think about like kind of ways of thinking or little hacks that I have used and my team has used recently to overcome deals falling through. So 3 of them. I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to give you some examples of, I'm going to talk about them, kind of define them. I'm going to give you examples of how this can maybe like look in the practice of real estate or in the practice of a transaction, and kind of just what I've learned and how I stumbled upon it, right? So I am a big believer in like practical knowledge. I'm a big believer in like, you can read all the books you want about these different things, but until you're able to practice them in a transaction with real people, they don't become, they don't really, I think, stick. So part of this is like, when you're hearing me talk about these concepts, think about a situation you've been in where they would apply. Like, oh, damn, I wish I would have had this when blah, blah, blah was falling through because I could have whatever. Or maybe it's like, oh, okay, this deal that I did where somehow I was able to get the seller or the buyer to do X, Y, Z, that's that concept. I didn't really realize that that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. So just kind of make sure you're actively like taking these concepts and applying them, because if you're not, they're just going to be like stuff floating in your brain with no context, and they're going to be forgotten with your next glass of wine. That's at least what happens to me if I don't apply some context and try to like reflect on how they work for me. So 3 things. The first one I want to talk about is something called a fight story. So the concept of a fight story, or sometimes I call them a war story, whatever it is realizing that the nature of how people are. So the nature of how people are is that if something comes easy, it's not as valued as something that is difficult. So an earned outcome, so remember this about fight story, an earned outcome is more satisfying than an easy outcome or just a natural outcome. So how does this apply to your clients or your transactions? Let me tell you. So we've all been in this situation before. If you've been selling real estate on any level for any period of time, you've been in this situation. You list a house. The first day, you list a house, and prior to listing the house, you talk to your seller, and your seller is like, yes, if I can get, $450 for this house, perfect. I want that. That's perfect. That's going to give me the money I need to move on. That's this. I'm about the 450 life. So you're like, great. Okay. So you put it on the market, and within 1 or 2 days, you get an offer for 450. And you go to your seller, you're all happy because you're like, okay, perfect. That was fast. Great. It's sold. I can move on to the next one. So you call that seller up, you let them know, hey, congratulations. We got an offer for 450, no contingencies, clean, ready to go. And they're like, oh, yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like, I kind of feel like 450 is too low. And you're like, what the fuck? You don't say that out loud, or maybe you do. Depends on your, relationship with your client. But in your mind, you're thinking, well, what do you mean it's too low? You told me left and right over and over, 450 is your number. That's what you need. Yeah, I don't know. I think we should maybe go back to them and see if they'll do 500. So in this situation, once again, I've been in it a million times. So many people have that I know. I mean, this is one of those most frustrating things, but I feel like the fight story here is a tool that you can use to prevent this. Same thing with, a buyer. You send an offer, you're asking for stuff, whatever price you wanted. Maybe you send an offer, $25,000 under list price for a house. You're getting closing costs paid or whatever. And the seller just signs it and sends it back. Yep, agreed. You go to your buyer. Yes, we got the deal. Congratulations. And they're like, oh, we should have offered less. I don't know. I don't even know if I like this house anymore. I still, we should have offered less, right? This is where the fight story is an important tool and something for you to be aware of. So if you remember that an earned outcome is more satisfying than one that just naturally occurs, it's important for you to create a fight, or at least a story around a fight, to help make that outcome feel like it was earned. So even if things are easy peasy, your cross agent they're on the same page as you, they understand, everything's moving forward and great. When you go back to your client, if it feels too smooth, you need to create a story around it being a little not so smooth. Maybe you had to, go back and forth on one point. Well, then really emphasize that. When maybe you went to them and told them up front, hey, this person isn't going to accept less than 450. Then make sure you tell that seller that. You need to create a story around, hey, this didn't just happen. This was because all the work that we did. The other thing that you could do is maybe that 450 came after you had, over 2 days, 17 showings, and you only had that one offer for 450. That's important context to say, yeah, we had 18 groups through here or 17 groups through here. And man, I had to fight tooth and nail, but I was able to get you that 450 number that you wanted. This was the only person who offered it. Everybody else decided to pass. These are ways that you can create a little bit of fight to make that outcome feel like one that they should really appreciate. A fight removes that doubt of well, could we have done better? Could I have gotten more? And a fight also creates stickiness. When somebody had to fight to get something, if somebody believes that the outcome that they have in their hand was something that they really had to wrestle to get, they're less likely to turn their back on it. They're less likely to give up on it quickly. So that means that down the line, if you're in the transaction, you start squabbling over stuff with inspections. Well, if you have a seller who feels like they sold that house for 450 lickety split second day and it was just nothing, what's the likelihood that they're going to want to fix an air conditioner, deal with a foundation problem, give a credit towards a home warranty? What's the likelihood of that? If they feel like that, all they got to do is say no. And if you go back on market, you can just replicate that outcome again. So that's why it's powerful for you to be thinking about the fight story whenever you're going through the motions of dealing with clients. So I talked earlier about being present, right? Thinking about and actively applying these concepts. So these concepts, that's how that works, right? When you're dealing with your seller or your buyer, or even with, another agent, thinking about, hey, do I need a fight story here before I go present this? Did this feel too smooth and too easy? A lot of times, when you're a great agent, I'm a great agent, right? So I make things happen and it can look very easy. And I learned the hard way that you can be punished for that. So even if there was, in the past, I would think, there's all this work that went into me getting this outcome. Well, I want it to look easy. I want this to look effortless for me. Wrong instinct. That was a wrong instinct of mine because I would have people that would constantly be moving the goalpost on me because it seemed like this was just happening effortlessly. So by me starting to utilize a fight story, it created a perspective of, okay, this is highly skilled. This took effort. This didn't just fall into place magically. She really had to hustle for this. And that also creates a little hesitation in your client for them to kind of push back on you, right? If they know, and trust you, they hired you, you come to them, still sweat on your brow, like, oh, I pulled this off, I got it, we did it, here's everything I had to go through. Well, if they like you, they're not going to want to send you back in the trenches. They're going to see, dang, she worked for this. I better, I'm going to respect that she worked for it, and I'm going to trust that this is the best outcome. So fight story, remember it. Use it. If things are going too smooth, be sure that you're remembering how important a small little fight story inserted at the right time can help you get your deal moving forward or help you through a difficult patch in negotiation. Okay, so that's the first one. The second concept that I want to talk about is what I call get 3 no's. So this is what I tell my team. I tell them, go get 3 no's. Make sure you get 3 no's before it's a no. All right, so here's why. I consider myself as the real estate broker in the transaction. I am the quarterback, right? So I've got title and escrow. I've got a lender involved. I've got another agent that I'm working with. And I view myself as, hey, I'm the leader of this thing. I am delegating to other people, other parts in order to get this thing done. So although I'm the leader, I'm not necessarily the expert or the one who executes all the things, right? So I don't execute title and escrow. I don't execute lending, right? So that means that I have to rely on other people to tell me stuff. Now, what I've learned over almost 1,000 transactions is that most things related to title, escrow, and loans are somewhat subjective. And this could be a controversial thing. And those of you out there who are a certain personality type might want to argue with me about it, and that's fine. Go ahead, reach out to me. We can argue about it. But what I have learned is that a lot of times there's a person who's making an interpretation based on some type of guideline. And that interpretation is flexible because it's based on whoever is looking at it is how they're going to see it. And however they've been doing it is typically how they have been doing it, right? So how they're going to do it is how they've been doing it, and that's how they're going to keep doing it. I don't know if that made any sense, what I just made, but I know you guys I know you get me. So the reason I'm saying all this is for context around how this works. So get 3 no's. So as the agent, hey, somebody's loan is denied. The natural question you're going to want to ask is why, right? Like why? A better question is, you're telling me no. How can it be a yes? You need to find 3 different people, 3 different experts in that area to tell you, okay, you're telling me no, get 3 no's. How could it be a yes? What needs to change to make this a yes? Doing this has become my trademark for why I'm known in Phoenix as an agent who can get very, very difficult deals done. And it's because when I'm being told no, that's fine. You're telling me no. I hear you telling me no. How could it be yes? What needs to change for this to be a yes? What needs to change for them to get approved? Ask the one you're talking to. Ask 2 others. Particularly ask 2 others who want that business, right? Like you want to ask other people who are incentivized to see you win. The fact of the matter is that people are going to see what they are looking for, and they do not want to be wrong. So when they're telling you no and you're asking them why, it puts them in a defensive position. It's not the best way to get somebody to step away from the conclusion of no and evaluate it from a different perspective. So that's why your question of why. Well, this can't be. No, you said this was approved before. Now it's not. Why? Right? So that is not the best way to approach that. A better way to approach is, okay, I hear you telling me no. what needs to change to make it a yes. That's going to help them open their mind, get more creative, look at it again, look at it from a different angle. This is important, but they might still come to the conclusion of no, because people naturally don't want to go back on what they just said, right? They don't want to come back with their tail between their legs and say, hey, you were right. You asked this question. I didn't think about that. Now it's a yes. It's very rare for somebody who, especially in sales, right? Salespeople have big egos. So it's like when you're dealing with ego, or you're dealing with somebody who owns their position and they don't want to be wrong, that can be difficult. So that's why you want to repeat this same process with two others who are not in the same company or in the same kind of stake as the one who's originally telling you no. I'll give you an example of how this just went down for me. So I have a client. She's just lovely. She's a repeat client. I think this will be my third deal that I've done for her. And she's buying a little property. She's actually closing on this today. She might be signing on it as we speak. And a few days ago, right before closing, we got the HOA information about this property. And basically the HOA wasn't showing enough reserves for them to be approved from the condo desk. So if you guys are realtors, you know that, Fannie Freddie guidelines around condos. There's guidelines for how much in reserves that these HOAs have to have in order for them to be willing to do these loans. Got it. Okay. So reserves aren't there. We're reaching out to the HOA company. They're being an HOA company, which in general means they're just shitty and suck. They're like, yeah, sorry, we're not going to, change it. They had the money. They just didn't even have it allocated on the budget, right? All we needed them to do was just remake the budget. They wouldn't do it. The seller's reaching out. Please do it. I can't sell my house to anybody with any reasonable terms if you guys don't change this, right? Because this is like a federal guideline for loans. Well, they're refusing. Now, backstory on this property, though, is that when I was looking for a property for her, she had a deal fall through prior for this same problem because she was buying a condo and they had no reserves. And we found out at the last minute again, and it fell through. So this time I was like, I need to find her something that's not a condo that she likes. And this property came up, and I wasn't trusting, what's in the MLS. I'm reading the legal description. I'm like, this says condo here, but the legal description reads like a townhome. I just know that because I've sold hundreds of them, right? So I'm like, this just reads like a townhome. I send it to my lender. He's like, I don't know, but on the Maricopa County Assessor's site, it says condo at the top. And I'm like, yeah, but this legal description just really reads like, a townhome, or like not that, something. Planned unit development, something like that. So I'm like, I think this is a PUD or a townhouse. And we kind of just moved on because she liked it so much. The place seemed way more on the up and up. I explained to her kind of the risk. We could run into the same problem, but she wanted to go for it. So whatever. So we get to the end, same problem, right? Oh my God, they don't have the reserves. They won't change it. We're supposed to close. And now we got to get an extension to try to work on this problem. So I was up all night thinking about it, and I just came back to like, I just really don't think this is a condo. I just really don't think it's a condo. So I was out to dinner. I text my title, my escrow officer, my favorite escrow officer, Jessica Peterson over at Magnus Title. Love you. And I'm like, hey, I really don't think that this is a condo, and here's why. And she's like, well, send me the address. And she's like, the assessor site says it's a condo, but I see what you're saying. Like, I'll look into it more on Monday. Cool. That's all I need to hear. I'll just look into it. Okay. So Monday morning gets there. I'm up early. I'm doing my research on it. I'm sending her and the loan processor, like, here's the reasons why I just don't think this is a condo. I'd called the assessor's office. They don't know. They're over there, like, literally like, oh, I don't know. Ask title, like, completely wild. But it was a great example of like, even the assessor's office is saying it's kind of up for interpretation. Well, I send Jessica what I have. I call another sale that had closed that was an FHA loan, which was a huge clue to me that something's here. There's a loophole here. Look, send all this to Jessica. She looks up the deed of trust, sees that it's a PUD the whole time. So the deed of trust for the current property I'm trying to sell, what the current seller had, and the deed of trust on the one that had just sold that was FHA, both of them say PUD. Okay. There's a lot of detail. But I want to show you how that worked, right? So it's like, I hear a no from the lender. He's telling me, hey, this is why it's a no. Okay. How can it be a yes? Well, it has to, has to not be a condo, but they're saying condo. Okay, go somewhere else. She's telling me no, it says it's condo, but she keeps the window open. She starts looking into it. Oh, wait, it is that you're right, blah, blah, blah. If I had not pushed back on that and did my rule of 3 no's, and I was only on my second one, I would not have this girl closing on this house. She would have wasted another $1,000 inspecting a house, appraising a house for it to fall through. She probably would have given up on even buying anything at this point and decided to rent, because who wouldn't blame her at this point? She's not made of money and she needs a place to live. So the rule of get 3 no's is super important. And remember, it's not just about why. Why is it a no? But it's about asking a question that allows the person you're talking to open their mind to see it from another way. You as the quarterback, that's your job, right? You've got people on your team. You're the one leading. If you view yourself as the leader of the transaction, and it's your job to make sure the right questions are being asked and people are being pushed on just right and just enough, you can solve so many problems. And I have closed so many deals for people who are working with other agents, couldn't get something done, come over to me, try again, get it done. But it's about that, it's about the shift in mindset of like, okay, you hit that wall. Is there a window? Can I go around it? There's so many different ways for you to position yourself to find that yes. And if you can just help somebody bridge that subject matter expert that is responsible for executing, if you can help them bridge with the right questions, you can solve so many problems that you will just be shocked. So I hope that's helpful. All right. Last one that I want to talk about. This is my favorite one. This is a saying that I've learned probably in the last year, and I've been just in love with it because it is so smooth and smart. It's called let the cake bake. So let the cake bake. All right. So I learned let the cake bake from my attorney. His name is Philip Nathanson. Philip Nathanson is old school. I think he's from Chicago, or at least he practiced law in Chicago for forever. I think he's been an attorney for like 40 years or something like that. And just like one of those people with an amazing amount of swag that only comes from the confidence of, I've won thousands of cases. I know how to negotiate. And he just has this level to him that just is so awesome to me. So I'm constantly calling Philip, and he thankfully doesn't bill me. He just takes my calls and lets me kind of talk through different things that I am thinking about when it comes to my transactions. And I send a lot of clients to him, and we just talk a lot about strategy. So that's your backstory on Let the Cake Bake. Came from Philip. So he brought this up to me when I was dealing with a problem. I called for his advice, and I was like, okay, so this is how I want to handle it. I want to call this person. I'm going to write this letter. I'm going to do this. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm taking charge. I'm going to force this bitch through. Like I can see don't worry. I got it. I'm going to grab this thing, this bull by the horns. I'm going to wrestle it to the ground. And he said, Moni, just let the cake bake. Just let the cake bake. And I realized, like, damn, he's right. Like, one, what a smooth motherfucker, right? That just says that. So that's always gets my attention. But the next thing is like really helping me see the power of letting something simmer a little bit. So that's the way I at least took it. So thinking about how this works, you've got a transaction. You need your seller to do something or else the deal's going to cancel, right? Something like that. And you know that this seller in the past, I'm using this example, it's a real example, but I'm trying not to use anybody's names. But you know that this seller in the past has been like, anytime you ask them to reduce the price or do anything, because they, started out extremely overpriced, wouldn't, follow your lead or whatever. So every time you go to them, it's always like the end of the world. I can't do that. I don't have that. I can't afford that. What am I, made of money? That's this person, right? So you know that their knee jerk is going to be no. So it's important for you to really manage that person correctly, because you already know that every time you go to them and ask them for something, they are going to say no. So you now have this inspection request from a buyer. You need them to You need this seller to do something, or else this buyer is going to cancel. This house is fucked up, or whatever the problem is. It's really important for you to know when to use a little bit of time to get them in the position that you need them, or a little bit of heat, a little bit of outside pressure that's not coming from you. Because in the past, when you first go to them and you're asking for stuff, what the hell, I can't do that. But 4 days later, okay, I guess I can do it. Okay. So if you already know that you have a person who's kind of like that, then it's important for you to remember, let the cake bake. This can also be relevant for if you're dealing with an agent who is a little bit kind of punchy or kind of, unpredictable or whatever. Sometimes, or just difficult. Maybe they're just not maybe they're combative, however they're going to be. But using let the cake bake in these situations allows you to let something besides you cook it for you. You want something besides you to soften it up, to let it marinate, let those little stew flavors get all gushy and good. And that's what let the cake bake is about, because a lot of times just the pressure of time passing, another mortgage payment's coming up, maybe a deadline related to something that has to get paid off by a certain time. Maybe it's grandkids that are growing up and they're about to start school in another state, and that time is quickly approaching and they wanted to be there by then. Maybe it's a lease that's going to be up. Sometimes it's just not any outside force, but it's more about just letting them cool off. All of these are around the concept of let the cake bake. So instead of you getting reactionary, this is a way for you to respond. And one way to respond sometimes is to do nothing. Sometimes the best way to respond to get what you need or to influence properly is to just let that sit there and let these outside forces work on it for you, and then go back at the perfect time to take your one bite at the apple. Because remember, every time you're interacting with a client, this is something I teach my team, think of the relationship bank account. You're either going to make a deposit or a withdrawal. There is no neutral. So every time you go to them, you have to be thinking about, am I about to make a withdrawal? Am I about to make a deposit? You don't want to be going to your clients and constantly making withdrawals when you can use something like let the cake bake to soften them and make stuff that you need them to do their idea. And that's the definition of influence, right? So being able to influence somebody is being able to get them to do what you need them to do for their reasons. That's influential, and you want to be influential. This tool, let the cake bake, especially if you're like a type A personality, or if you're like on the forceful side, driven, let the cake bake's gonna be hard for you, because let the cake bake says that sometimes people have to come to the right conclusion on their own time. And sometimes by you actually stepping in early, well, that meat's not cooked yet. The cake isn't done. You cut into that, the batter spills everywhere. Your oven just lost its preheat. Now you got to put it back in. Now it's never going to be as good as it could have been. Well, that's what happens when you don't have the patience to sometimes allow the time that some people need, or the outside other forces that were the first motivator for them to get moving forward on selling or buying. By not letting those things happen, sometimes you are the one who sabotages, because if you're in the relationship bank account, you're going to them making a withdrawal, and they're doing what they do, which is tell you no, because they fly off the handle, and that's how they have been. Well, now they're looking at you side eye. Now they're looking at you being like, God damn, every time she calls me, she's asking me to give up money, or she's asking me to lose. She's asking me to give up something. When instead, you could have let a little bit of time pass, and you could have played that to where they come to the right conclusion. And you can use a fight story around that in order to get that done. So all of these little concepts can sometimes work together to help you with just strategically better communicating to influence your clients. And I feel like that's really like what it's about, right? Like your ability to communicate and how you communicate. It should be your number one focus. Everything that you say, whether it's verbally, if it's text, email, anything that you're saying to your clients, you need to be super duper thoughtful about it. And that's what I've been. I mean, that's really the only thing that really, I would say, has led to a lot of my success, is like I have looked at myself under a microscope every time I'm successful or every time I fail, and I have applied a concept or I've kind of ordered it, found patterns, and then started applying these concepts and then testing these concepts over time. So that's what coaching for closers is about. That's what when I'm coaching my agents, that's what I'm doing, is taking these concepts that are just over 1,000 reps, right? Like you just start to notice patterns, and then you name the pattern, you define it, you sort of build a strategy around it. How was I successful most of the time around this concept? And the next thing you know, you can start thinking about this stuff on your feet, and it just becomes the way that you do communicate. But the thoughtfulness is where you start. So you, instead of being kind of on this autopilot, the buyer sent the inspection request. I need to call the seller today. I need to talk to them about it today. Well, look at the request. Is it fucked up? Is your seller going to say absolutely not to that? Is your seller going to fly off the handle and potentially blow the whole deal up? If so, maybe you want to take some time and work on that thing. Maybe you want to talk to the other agent and massage that out a little bit. Maybe you want to do some legwork that creates the fight story that you can tell. What you need to do no matter what is you need to stop and think about it before you start acting. And you need to remember that every time you're talking to your client, am I about to make a deposit or withdrawal? Am I able to turn this thing that feels like a withdrawal into a deposit? What are the creative ways that I can create a win here for them? These are the thoughts that you should have constantly in your head whenever you're thinking about interacting with your clients. It's crucial. And it's not just crucial for like getting your deals done. That's important. But more importantly, it's how your client feels when it's done. You don't want them feeling battered and beaten, even if you did go through. I mean, sometimes these transactions are like, in a battle, like for real, like you do feel beat up. But it's one thing to feel beat up and that you lost. It's another thing to feel beat up, but you won. Picture like Rocky Balboa, like at the end of Rocky IV, completely obliterated from Drago, right? Like just torn up. He raised his hands up in victory, screaming. I mean, imagine how he must have felt. Completely, his eyes shut, probably traumatic brain injury. I mean, who knows? All types of stuff. But man, he felt great in that moment because he won. He won. So it's okay if they go through the battle with you and get beat up, as long as you make them feel good about it. And the only way to make them feel good about it is at the end, they can say, I won. I won somewhere. I won on something. That's very important. So anyways, I'm talking a lot. And you can hear I'm passionate about this. It's fun to teach and coach on this, and to take my agents' individual situations and just step them way, 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 way back and be like, okay, let's get down to I call them the fundamentals. It's something I've written for my agents. So let's get down to the fundamentals, the concepts, right? Let the cake bake is about to be one of the fundamentals I'm going to write on, keep adding to it. But it's fun to sit down and to really look at this and to find the patterns, and then to find the right strategy to apply to be the most effective person that you can be when you're dealing with your clients. Because at the end of the day, we get hired to help our clients achieve a goal. And to be honest, it's more than help them, it's to execute on it, right? Like they don't know how to do it. The only way they can help is to not fight you as much as possible, right? So that you can get them where they need to be. So the skill is how is it that you can be the most influential and effective coach and communicator for them? And these concepts, I hope, will just put little tools, like I said, tools in your toolbox, little thoughts in your head, just things for you to percolate on and to notice. Is this a situation where I need to get 3 no's? Is this a situation where I need to ask, okay, I hear you saying no, but what would need to change to make this a yes? Is this a situation where, hey, this feels a little too easy. I don't want this person moving the goalpost on me. Let me create a fight story. Let me make sure I have a fight story with this one so that they get some satisfaction around the result they said they wanted. Or is this a situation where I need to just chill and let that cake bake, baby? So I hope that this was useful for you to listen to. If you like this, you can always reach out to me. If you want to read my weekly newsletter that I write, which has a lot of these concepts in them, I'm happy to send you the link to sign yourself up on. So just email me at moni@moniwilder.com. And if you want information about coaching for closers, just like this, very practical, based upon my 1,000 reps of selling houses and helping hundreds of agents across the country notice the patterns and start creating real practical strategies that are memorable and that you can apply right away. If that sounds interesting to you, I am more than happy to send you information on how you can get involved. So anyways, thanks for listening, guys. You have a great day. I'll see you next week.